Okay, this is Troy Ritchie with the What Say You interview podcast, and I'll get to my guest here in a minute. I'm just going to start by saying I got another connection request the other day. I clicked connect because I wanted to be this guy's friend, and sure enough, a day later, I get a sales message that says, based on your profile, yada 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 yada, and they're just trying to cold pitch me. It was never about the connection request. So what we're going to talk about today is that stop the bait and switch, where you come in with a connection request and then you sell on me. Brandon, is that what you do?
I would actually advocate for the guy that's jumping in and pitching you, but I think I take a little bit different approach. So, yeah, I don't know about the bait and switch mentality, but I have no problem with cold pitching.
If you know your audience, maybe.
Yeah, if you know your audience, absolutely. I 100% agree with that.
Okay, so thank you for being a guest. And just to preference the listeners, the purpose of we're having trouble streaming to LinkedIn. This may be an issue on LinkedIn's end. We'll keep trying. Okay, well, no. A post was great. No, so I'm going to, okay, so. Okay, they're going to keep trying. Brandon, thank you for technical difficulties on LinkedIn's end.
No worries.
But we'll keep pushing this. This really is about LinkedIn. So, you just to my preference, the What Say You interview podcast is not really a debate show. It's an opportunity for differing sides of an opinion or a thought come together and talk about it instead of screaming at each other like what we're seeing all across the country. And you posted a video. How long ago did you post that video?
Maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I would say, if I had to guess. I don't remember.
2 or 3 weeks ago. You were as fed up with the influencer saying stop selling as I was by being cold pitched by people that don't really know that I'm not a person. You know, they do a keyword search, founder of a side hustle business, and then they send me a message that has nothing to do with what I want to do. We both shared that. So let me share the video that you
here's the deal, guys. Imagine going to a networking event, but before you got there, you were told that you needed to go online and go on LinkedIn and learn every single thing that you possibly could about every single person that was supposed to be there. And if you don't do that, you're not allowed to have a conversation with them or start a conversation with them. That sounds pretty stupid, right? Well, that's how stupid these LinkedIn influencers sound when they put up these completely egotistical posts about what all you need to learn about them before you try to do any cold outreach. They completely forget that you're having to do this 50 times a day. But here's the thing. They're probably never going to respond to your cold outreach anyway. They're either going to just completely ignore it or give you negative feedback no matter how much research you did. So they're not your target market. Unfortunately, these people are leashed by their own belief system that prevents them from hearing about new ideas and new strategies, and they probably miss out on quite a few ways quite a few products or services that would make an impact on their business, their employees, their workflows, etc. So don't be leashed by that, guys. Whenever you're doing cold outreach, there's really two things you need to know. What problems do they likely face, and is there a potential for your solution to help them overcome those problems? That's it. Whenever you think about these people and you see these posts, guys, just remember, they either were never a salesperson or they were never a good salesperson. Stop taking advice from stupid people and prospect relentlessly. You have a good day.
That's me.
You use the term idiot appropriately. It's defined as a stupid person or a person of low intelligence. Tell us what gave you that, what inspired you to actually put that post out there?
Yeah, so I get on LinkedIn, every single day, and every now and then I see a post and I'm just like, my God, that is such bad advice to salespeople. And it frustrates me because above anything else, like the biggest thing that holds salespeople back is these leashes, these reluctancies, these excuses that people put on them and kind of implant into their brain that just prevents them from performing. So I believe the post I specifically saw that actually kind of sparked that video was a guy had, like, I don't know if it was a VP of sales or what, but this guy had literally made a whole long rant, a whole post about what all you needed to know about him before you tried to do any cold outreach. Just ridiculous, because there's really two things you need to know if you're doing cold outreach, in my opinion. Number one is, do they have a problem? Number two, do you potentially have a solution that could solve that problem? That's it. I don't care what podcast you were on last week. I don't care what you like to do for fun. I don't care what school you went to. And if you're me, it would frustrate you if that's how I reached out. I need to understand you may have this problem. If it is a problem, if I can fix it, let's talk about it. If not, no big deal. Have a great rest of your day. But don't give me a list. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and a lot of it is, and so the purpose of this conversation is what I'm frustrated about is the connection request. I don't get offended. I don't get frustrated when someone sends me an email that says, "Hey, this is what I do. I really like your profile. I think," and then insert pitch. And so when you see these influencers that are saying things like, well, first off, how long have you been in sales? Just
if you're talking about when I would sell Miss Shazad on letting me out of detention and out of in-school suspension, I'd say in high school. But if you're talking about consciously, I would say about 5 years now, 5-6 years.
Okay. And so I've got you beat a little bit. I started selling Kirby's at 18, door to door. And so I've been selling for 30 years, right? We both agree that selling is a noble profession, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I believe it's the only profession, is the most valuable profession, not the only profession, but it's the only one that allows you, if you want to make a lot of money, you're rewarded based on your merit, your effort, and things like that. So when, I have this thing that's like death to the sales pitch. I might write a poem or a play that is like the death of a salesman, the death of a sales pitch.
Beautiful.
And I believe that because the internet gives us information, and like a doctor, when a doctor comes in to evaluate you, he asks or she asks questions based on what you have as symptoms to better understand the treatment, right? So that's how I look at selling. Someone asked me once, if you tell someone to stop pitching, then what do they do? And I say, start selling. So that's just my thing.
Yeah.
When you talk about like the coming in with that value add, you have to go back to the doctor analogy, right? The doctor is asking questions. In your experience with what you have today, when you reach out to folks, you're having success. We'll talk about that in a minute. You kind of know who you're reaching out to and the symptoms that need to be treated. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the most important thing is if you are going to do that direct, cold outreach without trying to do all of the friendship relationship building at the beginning, I think it's really important to be very clear about who your target is and be able to articulate exactly how it is that you can help them. So I wouldn't say I have it defined down to, I know for a fact the person I am reaching out to is dealing with this problem right now. But what I can say is there is a pretty good chance that the person I'm reaching out to is dealing with this problem or have dealt with this problem in the past or may deal with it in the future, right? So that I'm very dialed in about who I'm reaching out to as far as the title and what type of company, what type of market they're in. And then I'm just very clear on the messaging. And again, my approach is if this is interesting, if it's worth having a conversation, let's do it. If not, then best of luck to you. Have a great day.
And is that your first message?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. So you're not doing the bait and switch. You're not saying, hey, let's be friends. And then boom, do a little.
No. You know what? There's a couple different sayings that really frustrate me about selling. And one of them is make a friend, make a sale. It's complete and total ludicrous. And it gives people the wrong idea. Because if you're selling based off of a friendship, every single time there's some sort of issue, let's say you sell them, every single time there's some sort of issue later on during the servicing of that account payment, whatever, they're always going to go back to that friendship and use that as leverage against you to work and resolve the problem in their benefit. I think that most people attack a selling conversation or life in general that they would rather be well-liked over well-respected. And I take more the approach of, you can trust me in this one tiny area of life when it comes to selling, when it comes to finding salespeople, and anything else, I may not be that good, but I want you to know you can trust me. You may not like what I have to say, but you'll know I'm going to deliver every single time when it comes to that one thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that brings us to a question of what is a friend. So go back to the doctor analogy. If you're going to a doctor, the rapport is established and the trust is established. Do you then, as a sales professional, keep that wall of separation? That's the only thing I can think of to describe it, to prevent from being a friend, or how does one, or is it just if it organically happens? How do you address the because you're getting to know them, right?
Yeah.
And they might be cool. Have some, like, grab a cigar after, I mean, golfing. You've seen where you're going out golfing with clients, that sort of thing. Where's that? How is that different than the friends analogy that you gave?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, and the answer is, like, I have plenty of people that after I've sold them, and we're talking weekly, I'm account managing and stuff like that, that we end up becoming friends because they're, a cool dude or a cool gal, and we get along, and friendship happens. But the difference is the intention behind when the conversation starts. I'm not cold outreaching to people on LinkedIn to make a new friend. I'm cold outreaching to people because I know that the problem I solved is there, and I like to make money. That is why I'm there. And I want to be very clear. I'm all about being genuine, right? So I think being genuine has to do with being very clear about your intentions from the start, rather than, again, that bait and switch mentality, like you just said. I think we agree pretty solidly on that.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree on my driving purpose of selling. Like, I can't sell sand in the desert. Not that I take that back. I'm trying to eliminate can't from my vocabulary. I won't sell sand, in the desert. And so it's I'm just checking to see if we're live on LinkedIn. I'm sure this is a great capture of my post. Anyway. It says that we're live. So hopefully we're live, because this is a LinkedIn conversation. And so a lot of folks are asking or like, they don't know how to make that conversion. But, like, my purpose of selling is to solve a problem. Networking event. Hey, Troy, what do you do? I describe, the problem is, and I describe what that problem is. Sorry, hold on. Apparently I can't do two things at once. This is nuts.
You're good, man.
Are we live on LinkedIn? That is the question. Okay, here we go. It's loading because it's slow. Yes, we're live. Perfect. Okay, now I can go back to my questions and get back on track. So that's kind of my purpose, is that I want to come in and solve a problem. If I find that I can't solve the problem, then I'm going to go for referral right away. Go for absolutely. The referral. I don't like saying I'm not here to sell you anything. I think that's gone a little bit too far. But when you describe, I like how you know your audience. I think that is a tremendous advantage. And I want to challenge you a little bit on how is that different from the influencer kind of venting, and although the advice may be a little ridiculous, like, I like the color green, or whatever they're giving as an influencer. How is that different? Aren't they saying the same thing? Like, get to know me as a target audience before you bring a pitch?
Correct. But to just be clear with you, for that person, I would say, I don't have any data to support it, but I would say there's a high likelihood that no matter how personalized you get with them on cold outreach, you're probably not going to get a response at all, or you're going to get a negative response. For somebody like that, I think the best approach would be to cold call them. Think a good shock factor, something to kind of loosen them up and get them to at least give you 30 seconds or whatever. I think personally that approach for that person would be much better. But what those posts come across as to me is, it just sounds like that type of person does not truly respect the nobility of sales. That's really my opinion. If you're putting that stuff out into the universe for salespeople to read, I just don't think it comes from a level of respect.
Yeah, and I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I work a lot with founders. I like the startup feel. And what's always interesting is founders, they pay and they respect programmers and technology. They respect project managers. Sales is something that anyone can do, right? And so, the founders will have 4 or 5 clients that they won't hand over to the sales professional. And it's always scratched my head. I'm like, excuse me, this is a profession, right?
Yep.
This is not just anyone can go willy-nilly. There is, especially on the psychology side, where, and in my view, guiding them through that decision, getting them to think about the end result rather than the cost that they're going to have. Those are all skills that you get better at. You're going to be a better sales professional next year than you are this year. But I would agree with you 100% is that you're going to want the guy that you despise on your team selling your content. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And I mean, if we're going back to, if we were talking about that question when it has to do with me and what I'm selling for that influencer, I would never reach out to that guy because our
Sure.
culture, the culture just wouldn't fit. Because I'm looking, I'm talking about warrior salespeople, just making them absolutely killers out there that know what they're doing, move people away from pain towards life improvement. And that attitude is just not going to work with somebody that's so leashed that they don't want people doing any cold outreach to them. They're not going to manage in that way that's going to support that person performing at a high level.
Right. And I would say that a lot of it has to do with the audience as well. That approach would not work in education. Education, the prospects are as fragile as, and if you're watching in your education, you're offended, you're just proving my point. They are so fragile, and it is a tiptoe. I mean, you sold to coaches in education, completely different animal. But share more about that warrior mindset. It sounds on the surface prickly, right? It has kind of that masculinity to it. Describe what a sales warrior is.
Yeah, absolutely. So a sales warrior, just to put it, give you the overarching theme behind it, is they are an advocate for their company, but a protector of their customers' best interests. So it's you are a super assertive salesperson that can figure out what the needs are, move people forward, show them a solution, and get them to move forward with that solution. If they're on the fence, they're 100% experts at that. But at the same time, they're never going to take that approach for somebody that does not have that need. I'm a perfect example. If I'm going to go buy a new truck or a new boat or anything like that, I need a sales warrior to be selling me, because I will not commit unless somebody shows me that this is the best option for me. And when I say, I don't know, I need to think about it, they have to ask me, what is it that would hold you back? Because immediately I'm just like, well, I don't know. I guess nothing will hold me back. It's a good question. Let's go ahead and do it. But I won't buy otherwise. And it's not because I'm like a salesperson that wants to see other good salespeople. It's truly because that's how I am. Like I need you to push me a little bit.
You know what? And the way I describe it, I need to be sold. And so when I think about that, I may not say, give me your best pitch. Because when someone tells me that, the hairs on the back of my neck rise up and I just walk away. Now context, that's coming from the startup world. In the startup world, you have these sharks. You're familiar with Shark Tank? Oh yeah. And the royal throne, the investors, they sit on their royal throne and they say, hey, to every a networking event or whatnot, I that. And I love the company SnapRaise. They didn't do that. They went and got customers, right? Yep. They got customers, and then the investors lined up to be a part of that. And so when someone says pitch me, however, when I'm it's Black Friday and I'm searching for a HDT, and I'm looking at the $799 Samsung HDT, and the guy says, have you OLED? And it's twice the cost, and convinces me that I need to go with OLED based on him asking about what movies I watch. And then when I walk out, the 8 people that are there around midnight or whatever that pre-Black Friday sale was, clapped. They applauded as I walked out. That's a good, that gives me a good feeling as a consumer. Yeah. You know what I mean? Absolutely. So share a story about like really selling someone where it was like, they experienced that type of based on your experience in walking them through sale. Can you repeat that question real quick? I got well, yeah, and let me set it up for you. Warrior is defined as a brave or experienced soldier or fighter, and I want to look at the word experienced. The feeling that I had walking out, knowing that I had made the right decision, spending more money than was my budget. There was no buyer's remorse. To this day, 2 years later, I still say, what an amazing day. Can you share an experience where you walked through someone that was maybe apprehensive at first, and because you were that warrior, you walked them through, now they had a level of confidence that maybe they didn't have before? Yeah, absolutely. Can I ask you one question first, just based off of the interaction you just shared? Was there tell me about the conflict. Like, what was the conflict that came up? Whatever, you were telling yourself, what did they work through with you, that salesperson, during the sale? I had a budget of $800, and HD TVs were low. Samsung's a great brand. And so I just walked by the organic light televisions to look what was in my budget. And it was the experience of the rep that said, well, have you considered this? and led me over, and then the picture blew me away. Right. So if that answers your question, that was the experience there.
Perfect. So we talk at FPG, we talk a lot about warrior sales. And every warrior sale has to have conflict, because what we found is and you've probably dealt with this before, is when the sale is too easy, you deal with some crap later on, whether it comes time for them to act on whatever product or service they bought, whether it comes time to pay, or with them canceling too early. Anytime I personally or within our company have that issue pop up, the sale was too easy. There was no conflict in the sale. So you asked me to share an experience. So I just got a new, long-term client on board for us back in, I want to say August or September. And I've been talking to them for 2 months, and they told me, Brandon, we already got budget approved. We're definitely going to move forward. We just got this new CRM, so we don't want to overload the sales team with all this new stuff. So I'm going to give a break. I said, okay, perfect. Well, they said, can you please call us beginning of August, and we should be ready to go. Waited, followed up, called them beginning of August, got on the phone, got them all bought in again. And their main objection that they gave me was, Brandon, it's a new home sale. It's a big market that we're in. And if you don't know, or your listeners don't know, there's new homes are selling like freaking crazy right now. There's a major supply chain issue. Prices are being jacked up. They're just selling like hotcakes, right? And when I talked to them, they said, Brandon, we really, really want to do this. We've got the budget approved. We see the value in it, but our sales team's just so overloaded right now. They're working way past their hours. They just have like no extra time. And we don't want to throw this on them, not get the full value out of the program. I said, okay, so let me ask you just one question. What do you guys think is going to happen, 6 to 8 months from now? Are they still going to be in that position? They said, no, that's why we thought we'd probably be in a better place to start then, because things will be slower and market may take a turn. So those have more time on their hands. I said, okay, well, just so you guys know, 6 to 8 months from now, I'm going to make a lot of money, because all of these builders that have been pushing it off that I've been talking to are going to be, they're going to be calling me saying, hey, Brandon, we can't sell. Our salespeople can't sell anymore. The market's taking a turn. What do we do? Can you help us? And I only have so much time that we can actually sell training to. We only have so much time in our schedules. I said, so my question is, do you want to be reactive and sign up then and start preparing your salespeople when they're middle of the storm? Or do you want to start preparing them now so they're always ready for the winter? And immediately they're like, all right, that makes a whole lot of sense. We'll figure it out. We'll make time. Let's go ahead and get this thing signed. So they're pumped. Like, their sales team is extremely overloaded. We did an initial call with them, and they're still excited though, because everybody knows in that market that it's not going to be like that forever. It's probably not even going to be like that for the next 12 months. So although it's going to be a sacrifice for them, they're excited about the opportunity, because they just had to kind of reframe the way they were thinking about it.
And I would even say that it wasn't them reframing. It was you guiding them to consider that, to look at that. I had a call today where they their costs are really really high, or they've lost, they were servicing a touring industry here in Las Vegas, and the touring market has been hit hard. And so I had her on the phone, and I said, I'm not going to let you go without asking what about you and your video content, storytelling through video and so forth. And she said, oh, we just don't, hit me up and such and such. And I kind of chuckled, and I said, oh, it's chicken or the egg. What do you do first? Do you wait for the money to come in before you're going to do something, or do you do something so the money comes in? Right? It's that thing. And they need, and I would say that's not a pitch that you just described. It's asking those questions based on the level of candor that you have is based on the relationship that you have. And I don't know. I think you're more friendly. I think you're more friendly than you may want to put off. I think you're a friendly guy. I think you have a lot of friends there.
I mean, I would agree that I am friendly, but that is not my intention. My intention is when I get on a sales call, I want that prospect to respect what I have to say. Sometimes you have to ask the tough questions that make people feel uncomfortable. But if you don't ask them, they're never going to think where you need them to think in order to move forward and, progress. Right. Absolutely.
And that is, in my opinion, remember, I just read the definition of warrior is based on that experience and let me see, read it again. Brave or experienced soldier or fighter. And you can take those methodologies even in life. So tell the story. It's a great story. Tell the story about, you're kind of an influencer, right? On LinkedIn, you put content out. You have an audience that you talk to. tell me about when you were approached, hey, we're going to do some cold outreach via InMail. You were apprehensive at first.
Yeah, I was. And I think that's a perfect example of, you're getting programmed with negative advice every single time you read through LinkedIn.
Sure.
If you see, this will not always be true, but I think in the certain scenarios where I have seen it, it may be true. These people that post those ridiculous things that I described at the beginning of this, I would imagine that they do not perform very highly in the area of sales, because what they're doing is people like to be comfortable, right? Like 99% of the human population is going to err more and relate more to the side of comfortable. And that's why they get such high engagement. So they put something out there that's going to attract mediocre salespeople that keeps them in their comfort zone. They're like, yeah, I agree with that. I would say on my side of things, I put stuff out there that makes people feel uncomfortable. I get lower engagement because most people are like, screw that, I don't want to do that,
Mm-hmm.
But it's what makes a difference, right? So I think that whenever I first was told we're doing this cold outreach, I was a little bit apprehensive, but I wouldn't say to an extreme extent. I just didn't want to, from what I had seen about LinkedIn, that was not what LinkedIn was about. And then I said, you know what? I'm not making any money off of LinkedIn right now. Why not give it a try? So I just went full-fledged with it, right?
And what happened?
We actually did it as a team. So between 4 of us, we started this about 2 months ago, and 100% took the cold outreach approach. And just mind you, before that, I was sending personalized video messages. Because people would say to send those, very little responses, no appointment set from it. Then I would send, I do the voice memos, right? So I said, you know what, change the state. Let's see if this will make it work. Didn't really have much success off of that. And then we just went, you know what, screw it. We're gonna go full-fledged ahead with this cold outreach. We're gonna get this out in front of as many people as we possibly can. And the results have been insane, because the bottom line is it may take an hour to send out 100 messages, right? Yeah. Copy and paste, 100% copy and paste. I'll say that for all of my LinkedIn people that are following. If you got a message from me, it was copy and paste, because I need to get this out to as many people as possible. If I don't, I feel like I'm doing a disservice to people who need it. And what we found was, over the past 2 months, we've been able to generate a total of $1.89 million in opportunities over the past 2 months. We have closed, I wrote this down earlier just so you had the numbers, just so I can show the proof in the pudding, right? 1.8 million since in the past 2 months in total opportunities. We have $878,000 that are currently in the pipeline. We have another $600,000 deal, one conversation, a $600,000 opportunity. I'll be candid, because I think it's important to be honest, that deal did not go through, but they will be working with us in a different capacity, kind of restructuring things. Got $189,000 out in open deals currently, and we've closed $223,450. That's closed new business in the past 2 months. 100% cold outreach.
Just to be clear, this is not sending a connection request with a VP of sales saying, I want to be your friend. I love your content. We share networks. Connection first, then you send out a 5-paragraph pitch. This is your first outreach, is present the value right out of the gate.
Yeah. So I can't speak for the rest of my team. For me personally, I don't add a connection request message in there. I just connect. They either accept it or they don't. I don't really go back and check if they accept it or not. Just keep connecting more people in my target. I believe some of my team has tested and pivoted a little bit on the actual connection request message. I have not, but I know for a fact it is not the friend approach. If it's anything, it's, hey, saw you were the VP of sales at XYZ company, would love to connect. Something very simple. It's not misleading in any way. It's just saying it's just adding that connection request, because I imagine there's some statistics out there that increase the acceptance rate whenever there's some sort of message, no matter how basic it is.
Well, you save money. You don't have to do a InMail. You don't have to pay for the InMail if they're connected.
Well, I wait for the people to accept my connection request before I send a message. But I know some other people on our team have started with the initial connection request, but it's just very simple. Hey, I saw you're the VP of this company. Let's connect. But it's not, hey, I saw your content. It's great. Want to be your friend. It's not that type of message.
Right. And so when they, have you gotten any pushback once they get the second or the second message after the first message after the connection request?
You know what's funny, man, is I went into it fully prepared to get people, people like that blowing me up. I have not had one single person give me a
Not
negative
one.
response.
And
So
who is that target? What's their persona? Just for the, the audience.
So they're either a director of sales, VP of sales, sometimes an owner, depending on the size of the business. That's currently growing their sales team. What I'm really looking for when I'm being hyper focused and want to put more work in, I'm looking for people that have current, job ads out for salespeople. But more than anything, with sales having an 80% turnover rate within the first year, anybody that is in one of those three titles is likely looking for salespeople. So that's who I'm adding. And I'll tell you, you had asked me about the responses. One of three things happen. I either get ghosted, which that's what happens most of the time when you're sending out messages and asks, you don't get a response. Number two is they'll say, hey, Brandon, thanks for the message. I'm not interested. Or number three, sounds interesting. Let's talk. I have not had one single person. I imagine, I will eventually. It'd be crazy if I didn't. I'm waiting for it, but
yeah, I mean, your audience though, they're used to that. They train it. And if you come in as a professional, I would imagine they respect it. The ones that say I'm not interested, they really don't know what they're not interested in, or is your message that clear where it may be a level like what's your pushback on I'm not interested?
I guess I should have put a fourth category in there. I've had some response say, hey, Brandon, we actually just filled our last role, but we're going to be looking to add on some more people Q1 or Q2. And my immediate response just to have them to add them to the pipeline, which I didn't include in those numbers because it's not really an opportunity yet.
Sure.
But I'll immediately respond and say, that sounds great. Can I send you our white paper so when the time comes, you have that on hand and you have that info? And they said, yes, please send that to me. We've got a really, really good white paper that our team put together. And I always get a response from that. So I'll get their email, send them the white paper, and they'll respond, hey, Brandon, this actually looks really cool. Yeah, plan on following up with me beginning of January or whatever. But I would say my message is very clear. If they're telling me flat out no, there's not much more I could elaborate on that would change that perspective.
Yeah. And then how about like if someone's watching this program right now and they want to increase their sales, what type of company do you work with? I mean, do you want to work with a company that wants to sell to influencers? I mean, I'm going to tell you, selling to an influencer, that's a tough gig because we're divas and because we're emotional and because we're doing crazy things. We're not really a target, a lot of peaks and valleys, I would say. So like what companies are you looking for that you can truly help? Describe that a little bit. Tell us about FPG.
Yeah, so there's a couple different problems that we solve. See that? Taking your approach. So number one is, sales teams that are underperforming to where they aren't consistently hitting their numbers and they're constantly having to sell through incentives or discounts and things like that in order to move the sale forward. Companies that, they have owners or VPs that are sitting there saying, man, we've got the best freaking product on the market. We may be a little bit more expensive, but we by far are superior to all of our competitors. Why are they outselling us? We want to work with people like that because there's some sort of leak in the sales system that's holding them back from maximizing and bringing their value to the world. So there's a couple different ways that we help those companies. Number one is we can take existing salespeople, train them in our Warrior Selling Program. It's number 2 sales development program in the world. Put them through a 90-day program, get them up to speed quickly. The second way is, leadership's important, and if the leadership's not extremely dialed in for top level salespeople, it's just never going to work. You need to have that accountability and a way to make it happen. So we train leadership on we have a program called Leadership Sales Coaching where we train leaders on how to effectively manage sales warriors or effectively coach sales warriors. And the final piece that we're really having a lot of success with right now is we actually go out, we recruit, we train, we assess, and we guarantee top level salespeople. So we don't just go find them to fill a role. We find the top, we assess them on behavioral characteristics to make sure that they truly are a warrior. We use NLP, neuro-linguistic programming interview questions to make sure they got the mental wiring of having mental toughness, a top level salesperson. And then once we find that person, we put them through a full 90-day program to get them up to speed quickly. And if they're not selling where they need to be, we actually guarantee them. So if they're not up to where you expect them to be, I will call you and say, hey, fire them. Let us go out and find somebody better, because obviously I have not followed through with what I promised.
I get it. It sounds complex. Is there are there companies too small for your service?
Absolutely not. So we are currently working with individual companies where it's a CEO and they've had some success and they're looking to scale things. So they're bringing on their first salesperson. We work with multiple companies like that. And then we're also working with companies that, we work with the largest heavy machine dealer in the entire world. So we work all the way up to the top. So we train a process, and we believe that there's not an industry specific sales process. We've proved that by working in a ton of different industries. If it's a good sales process, it works wherever, just tweaking the language a little bit.
Yeah. What if they're, do you work like with service-based companies?
Can you give me an example? Yes, but give me an example.
Yeah. Like just they don't have a tangible item to sell. It's more based around service, like a consulting service or whatnot.
Yeah. So are you asking like sales training companies, sales leadership training companies, recruiting companies, things like that?
Not necessarily. Let's say it's a data, like they do business intelligence, and they've got 3 sales reps and they're selling programmer. It's not really a recruiting model. It's more of a, we come in, we build a project for, a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah.
My question is around more along the lines of, if you find out their product or service sucks, do you still take them on to train their salespeople? If it's like you're realizing, dude, this is not anything that we've been told. Like, how does that evaluation work? And I'll end this segment by saying that, like, I needed editors for my book, or when I was in music, I needed a bass player or a guitar player. If they didn't dig my music, tell me, and I'll go find someone else. No offense. I know they're talented enough. It's just, there's more synergy, right? When you really can.
Yeah.
And, do you ever come across that, or is it more about the sales process, more about the individual's warrior beliefs, that sort of thing?
I can't say, it's a good question, but I can't say I've really run into that where I'm just like,
oh, cool.
It doesn't matter how I train you. You're not selling this product sucks. I've not dealt with that yet. More than anything, I imagine if that was somebody who came, it would be more so like an individual person. Because obviously if they've got a company, they've had some level of success selling it. They've got multiple people, but that may be an individual trying to make something happen. And I'll be brutally honest saying, hey, I don't know if it's the right match, but if you're confident and you have this belief system that says this is going to work and you want to sharpen up your sales skills, then yeah, we can train you. But I mean, to some extent, you have to be aware of what you're selling. But again, it's not a situation that's arisen for me yet.
Yeah. And just, we have a few minutes left. I just want to reiterate that what you guys have is remarkable in the fact of, so much about the problem you're solving and who you're solving it for. And if anyone gets anything out of this, sure, we're gonna poke fun of the hipster influencer, and we're gonna poke fun of the CPA that's trying to send me a cold in-mail. And I will just say, anyone that's trying to do that, invest in the in-mail, send it first. Say, hey, I've got a proposition I'd like to talk to you about, and then I can at least say yes or no, instead of, Troy, I really like what you're doing on LinkedIn. Can we connect? When it's really just a bait and switch. But like, I really need to compliment you on that. When you know your value and you have it presented, share this last thing. Share a little bit about how you guys. How do you word it? Do you call it a mission statement or a sales mantra, or what do you call it when you know exactly what your process is and you can recite it? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So we would call that a monologue. Most sales roles. First of all, I mean, most sales trainings out there, you're going to get very what and why based training, meaning what you should do, why you should do it, and it typically lacks on the how. We really focus on the how. How do I actually apply this to my day to day? With that being said, we teach a tactical, step-by-step structured sales process. And the key to mastery, we believe, is self-practice. So a dialogue is great. Having that role play helps, but it almost encourages reactive behavior. So I'm waiting for you to respond to figure out where I'm going next. And don't get me wrong, I love role play, but I think you need to have your sales process down to a T before you can truly learn from a dialogue role play situation. So for example, I could come off the cup and say, you know, there's a couple different reasons why people choose us, rolling through my whole sales process from top to bottom. Like I'm just selling myself, right? Once I can get that down and I can do it off the top of my head, then we can jump into a role play and use those techniques and amplify those techniques. But you can't do that unless you know your process. But that's the thing is, you know, most salespeople, if you asked every single salesperson in the world, what is your sales process? Can you deliver it to me right now? Show me. Don't explain it. Show me. You know, there's only a handful that could actually do that.
Yeah. And so you come in and you, if they do bring your service in, you come in and you do that discovery, ask questions and then do you build that for them then?
Yeah. So we already have the structure and we are like, so for example, if we recruited somebody, the goal by the end of the 90 days of training is they should be the top person on that team when it comes. They should be able to send me a video and say, hey, Brandon, here's my monologue, run from top to bottom in their language, so on their product or service better than anybody else on the team can.
Right. But so do you allow the others, like, are you still giving the other, sure, let's say it's not a recruiting situation, but let's say it's, we've got our 5 sales reps, they've passed your test. Do you come in and do you build that for the company and then then train them from there?
Yeah, absolutely. So they would go through similar type of training. The only difference is being an FPG recruit, I can hold them to a much, much higher standard because we've gone out and find a freaking warrior, right? So I can hold them to a high standard. They're, you know, we got to guarantee out, I got to make sure they perform. With salespeople that we train, you know, we're taking what we can get, and we are going to drill it. We're going to work through any uncertainty they have, any questions they have, or things they don't work comfortable. That's something that we do a lot, is working through what are the reluctances that are going to hold you back from using what you're learning. Because if you could teach somebody the best process in the world, but if they've got any sort of leash there that's going to hold them back from using it, it doesn't really matter. It's almost like they learned nothing.
Right. You know and that's the point of having the right people doing the right thing with the right mindset. If they don't have a warrior, if they don't have a warrior mindset, it's easier just to start from scratch. Brandon, I'm sorry we didn't disagree more. I tried.
It's all right. I had a feeling we may go this way, but hey, if you don't mind, can I say 2 things real quick based on something you said a minute ago? Number one, LinkedIn InMail is a killer way to cold pitch somebody because it's almost like they're expecting it when they get an InMail. That's typically what it is. I've had major success off of that. And then number 2, oh man, slipped my mind. Number 2 was I wanted to talk about like my approach may not work. We were going to talk about that. You know how it's working for me to send out these emails en masse, but if you're selling something like SEO or marketing or something that 100,000 different people are selling, you do have to take more of a unique approach, a more customized approach, because the bottom line is.
I almost said sorry to cut you off. However, I just cut you
you're
off.
Good.
So
don't
apologize. I think that it's still right. It's just that what you guys have done is you've identified who your audience is, and the SEO people need to identify who their flipping audience is. And I think you can do that prior to first off, selling SEO. Like if anyone that comes to me and says, hey, I want you to look at my SEO, I will Google their name. If it doesn't come up, you're fired. I mean, that's the most difficult thing to even build value in, especially with the click funnels and all that stuff. Yeah. But I think that we as sales professionals, we can do enough of establishing our personas, right? And I think a lot of that comes to rejection. But I think that's the beauty of what you have. So I don't know if I agree with that. I know what you're saying though. And you're offering almost an olive branch, right? Where it's like you understand how different approaches, but I still think we can do better.
Absolutely. And it's like in the simplest form, if you don't have a unique product, you need to be very unique in your messaging. So be very, very clear. Write some killer copy that you know is going to be better than what anybody else is sending through the DMs. You know,
that's right. And I love that InMail. So the value of InMail is that when you see it, you already are your mindset is preparing yourself for. Yeah, they're going to present me with. I love that.
How often do you get an email where it's just like
that's so great?
Messing around. It's very clearly a sales pitch, but you'll read it. You know, it goes to the top of your inbox. Boom, right there.
Boom. That's a great word. Boom. Okay. Brandon, thank you so much. If you want to get a hold of you, is your profile the best way to do it?
Yeah. Profile, shoot me a message. All my contact info is on there, and love to talk to you.
Yeah. And make sure you mention that you saw him on the What Say You podcast. We had 0 comments. However, we definitely had, hold on, let me see here. We're having technical difficulties with StreamYard, throwing StreamYard under the bus. And let me see if anyone had a comment. No, Matt Cooper says hello. I anticipate some people getting fired up after listening to this podcast. Thank you.
Love that
really, guy. Yeah, really great responses. Brandon, thank you so much. Check out his profile. Check out his content. Don't be offended when he calls someone an idiot. It means you need to raise your intelligence level in that area. And Brandon's a cool guy where even if you called out someone and they reached out to you and said, help me be a sales warrior, I'm sure you would help them. And so that's what I love about your heart, man. So thank you so much. And we'll see you next month on the What Say You podcast. Thanks, guys.
Later, Troy.